All right, so you should be ready for social studies. That means you have your notebook. You titled your date, the date already, which is the 1st of March. And the title of this lesson is History Has Shaped the Present. I put past? Yeah, has shaped the present. All right, so, try it again. Do not be late and then interrupt us. So try it again, please. It's still interrupting. Yesterday was the last day of February. I was kind of hanging out with my daughter, and she asked a question about March and why was March named March. And I was like, well, I would assume it's because of the god Mars, but I'm not really sure. So we decided to look it up a little bit and read. And remember, we're inside now, so master back home. So we looked it up, and apparently this is what happened. So thousands of years ago, Julius Caesar was the dictator of Rome, and the first person that figured out, well, that put into play like the calendar. Okay, and so they used a calendar that only featured 10 months, and their first month was March, and they named March after the god of war, who was Mars. Now, the reason that they only had 10 months, and the reason that this was the first month, is because they kind of took the winter off. Once it started snowing, they were just like, whatever, we're going to take a break. We're going to stop our fighting. Because Rome was always taking over property and trying to control everything. And so they would start their campaigns again in March. So that's why they named it March, because it was all about war. We still call it March. Thousands of years later, we still call it March. April comes from the name of a flower bud opening in Roman or in Latin. May was about like rejuvenation and youth. June, I think, was about like was the goddess Juno. I think that had to do with like elderly people. And then you got into July. July was called like Quintepus because it was the 5th month. And then August was Sextimus because it was like the 6th month. And then we have September, 7th month, October, 8th month, November, 9th month, December, 10th month. That's why there was 10 months. And then January and February didn't exist. They didn't really keep track of it. Okay? And so, what happened is after Julius Caesar died, they changed the name of the 5th month to July in honor of him. And they changed the name of the 6th month to August in celebration of Augustus, Caesar Augustus, which I think was Julius Caesar's grandkid. I'm pretty sure. I could have that wrong. Then, they tried changing September, October, November, and December all throughout the eons to different Caesar's names, but it didn't catch. So, even though all of this stuff was created thousands of years ago, we still use it, even though it doesn't align with our current calendar, because December in our calendar is the 12th month. But we still have a name that means 10th month, which is kind of interesting. But again, the past and the decisions of the past shape what we do now. And we're going to continue thinking about that and studying that as historians do. So, we are going to take a look at a few things here. So here's a little dinosaur humor. You can't see the part. Up at the top, he says, I hate that I have to spend half my life doing a job I hate for a boss I can't stand. And then his friend goes, haha, yeah, we live in a society. And the other one says, the point isn't that we live in it, but that we built it. And we could just have easily built it differently. So everything that's happening in society right now is something that we have created. And again, one of your jobs as a student and as a member of the youth is to try and think differently about things as you grow up and as you take control and as you take power. What are some things that you notice that need to be changed, and what are you going to do to change them? I mean, I already went over it. We can watch the video later if you'd like. So here, we had talked about this idea about the African perspective in Mesozahe. So let's take a quick look at it again. Oops.
de un latino unidos, pero en el mismo tiempo tenemos que terminar la discriminación entre nosotros los latinos.
Estamos como estamos porque somos racistas entre nosotros. ¿Sabes qué? No nos apoyamos.
I always feel like I'm never Latina enough because of my skin color, because of my hair.
I would just hear my family be like, oh, dark skin. Arregla la raza.
Dark skin in the Latino community isn't considered beautiful.
We've been colonized so poorly that we want to identify with being white so much, not all of us, but many of us, that we look down on dark skin.
Tú como negro latino tienes dos problemas. Primero, eres negro, se te discriminan por negro. Y segundo, eres latino, te discriminan por latino. Eso es doble minoría.
So when we think about mestizaje, and we think about the role the indigenous people played in mestizaje, and the role the African played, what do you think? Were they treated the same? Was it worse for one than the other? Talk to your shoulder partner. I'll talk to Antonio. What do you think? Was it worse for one? Was it the same for everybody? Who had it worse? They wouldn't have done. They wouldn't have done. 3, 2, 1, 0. What was that? Okay. It doesn't seem to be the time to talk about that. Again, when you think about it, it was bad for everybody. But if you were going to compare yourself like indigenous to slave, it was probably a better deal to be indigenous than it was to be a slave, but up for argument. All right, so we're going to keep looking at the present and trying to uncover some information from the past that will help us to understand things a little bit better. So we're going to do something called connect, extend, question. So we're going to look at a picture. You're going to make some connections to it, talk to your partner, talking about that picture, what you think about that picture, not necessarily about recess, not necessarily about a movie you just saw, but what you saw about the picture. Then we're gonna read something that will extend your understanding of that picture, and then we're gonna question it a little bit. You will be writing down a response in your notebook, so please be sure you have that ready. Oops. All right, so there is a picture. So what do you think about that picture? Talk to your partner. Ah, okay, it's like different, it's like diverse parties. Okay, and who plays with parties? Whoever? Is that who they're advertised to, you think? So there's like girl boys, toys and boy toys. All right, 3, 2, 1, 0. Thank you, partner. Thank you, Antonio. One thing Antonio was talking about is, number one, there's a diverse amount of Barbies, right? That used to not be the case when it came to the Barbie world. There was really only one that looked one way. And then we also talked about how that can be seen as maybe a girl toy. Whereas if a boy would like to play with Barbies, then maybe he is made fun of. In fact, maybe we even heard some laughing back there. It's kind of the same idea as to boys shouldn't cry. Right? Have you heard this nonsense before? That gentlemen and men should not be people who cry. Like you get hurt, don't cry. You get your feelings hurt, don't cry. Well, that's ridiculous. Men are allowed to cry. Boys are allowed to cry. All humans are allowed to cry if they're in pain. It's a great way to de-stress. I get a good cry once a year or so. I watch a sad movie. I just lose it. The Green Mile every time just makes me weep. I cried for about 10 minutes in my wedding. I was so happy. I couldn't get through my speech. It's okay to cry. All right? But we have sometimes this machismo kind of, men need to be tough and like crying means you're weak. Well, let me tell you, this doesn't mean anything. It just means that you're crying. That's all crying means. is that you were hurt bad enough that your body reacted in a way that needed to stimulate things. That's all it is. Okay? It has nothing to do with your strength or character or anything. So, has there always been girl toys and has there always been boy toys? Did you know that before 1975, very few toys were labeled by gender, meaning they were not seen as a boy toy or a girl toy? Even in the 1950s, when many toys were still made to prepare girls for a life of homemaking and boys to get industrial jobs, more than half of the toy advertisements still did not label by gender. So again, even though there were boy toys and girl toys, they weren't advertised. So it wasn't like, hey girls, check this out. Hey boys, check this out. They were just advertised as toys. There was a law that changed in the United States in 1984 that removed restrictions on how advertisers targeted children's market. This caused many companies to label and market toys for a specific gender, only hoping this would mean parents would have to buy more. So again, we have this thing. I know you think I'm kind of ridiculous and repetitive when I talk about advertisements and people wanting to manipulate you to make money. It's been happening forever. Okay? The job of an advertising agency is to convince you to buy something. That's their whole job. That's why they exist. Okay? And so when you think about all of this stuff online and everything, their whole point is to make money. Because they like money. Money's good, but manipulation isn't great. All right, so in the 80s, a strange thing happened too when they started targeting boys and girls about toys. Computers, electronics, that was targeted to boys. So at some point, advertisers decided computers, electronics, all of that were boy stuff. And they almost never showed girls in advertisements when it came to video games and computers. Pretty messed up. Why is that messed up? Because if you look at like the industry of computers and like programming and everything, it's mostly men. And one of the reasons could be is that it was made a boy thing back in the 80s. That could have had an impact on it. Who knows really why, but that is how it is.
Maybe it could be like it was just a boy thing that the boy started experimenting with it first.
Well, yeah, they started playing with it, had more experience, more foundation on it, and more interest in it. But it could have been because of the advertising, which is a strange thing to
Yes,
think about.
I think it's so then they had like more experience with that, so they started doing that.
Yeah.
But like the girls that don't know like anything won't like
They wouldn't have that experience with the foundation in there. Exactly. All right, so what would be the effect if we continue to allow toys to be advertised specifically as girl toys or boy toys? I want you to answer that question in your notebook and use this sentence starter. If toys are advertised for only girls or only boys, the effect is what? What do you think the effect will be or is? Social test. You break your finger?
No, it's like a gift.
From the game?
No, like it was like 2 weeks ago, and it got like paper because I did like took care of it. So
Makes sense. Another 10 seconds or so, get your answer done. Hey, go ahead and share your thoughts and your answer with your partner. What do you think? What do they think? What's going to happen if we continue to do that? Right. Get made fun of. All right, 3, 2, 1. Thank your partner. Thank you, Antonio. All right, again, there's this whole thing sometimes where, like, if you're a boy and you want to play with a doll, or you're a girl and you want to play with trucks, people might go, what? That is weird. Why would you want to do that? And that comes from this idea that there are specific things that are for boys, okay, or specific things that are for girls, even colors, for goodness sake. Sometimes people think pink. I love lavender and pink. They're my favorite colors. Doesn't make me any less of a person, Okay, but sometimes people think, blue is a boy color and pink is a girl color. Again, if we are inside, please put our masks on. We are not actively drinking. So, next up, what are you looking at? What is that? I will tell you what that is. If you don't understand what that is, those are clothes. Those are clothes. So check out with your partner. What do you see? What are you wondering about? What's that? It's a lot of clothes. Isn't that crazy? That's nice. It's a big mountain of clothes underwater. All right, 3, 2, 1. Thank you, partner. Thank you, Antonio. Man, it's a lot of clothes. Have you ever wondered when keeping up with fashion trends became such a big deal? Trend is like a very popular thing that happened for a little bit of time, a trend. In the 1960s, more magazines began being published. So again, before the internet, there was newspapers and magazines. The magazines advertised, advertising again, the latest fashion and clothing. Young people wanted to keep up. What's going on? I mean, something's going on. Can it end, please? Yeah? Gentlemen, too? It sounded like maybe there was some talking here as well. Can it just stop so we can listen? Young people wanted to keep up with the fashion trends, but couldn't afford to buy new expensive clothes every month. So they started buying cheaper clothing. Soon, fashion brands had to find ways to keep up with this increasing demand for new, affordable clothing, leading to massive textile or clothing mills opening across the developing world. In fact, I believe Medellin has a lot of history when it comes to textiles and creating clothes. So if you're not aware of that, that would be something to learn about. With the even quicker paced movement of fashion trends due to social media, there is even more demand for cheaply and mass-produced clothing to keep up with the Instagram, TikTok generation. Now there are hundreds of clothing brands that make this fast fashion type of clothing. Fashion production now makes up 10% of humanity's carbon emissions, dries up water sources, and pollutes rivers and streams. What's more, 85% of all textiles go to the dump each year. And washing some types of clothes sends thousands of bits of plastic into the ocean. All of our clothes in it right now have plastic on. Every single thing that we're wearing. Every single thing. And when we wash it, microplastics come off of it. And they go into the drain, and then they find their way into the ocean. And so when we want to point our finger at the plastic industry or at people for polluting it, remember, whenever you're pointing your finger, you got 3 fingers pointing right back at you. All right? That's all of our responsibility. We're all making things not great. And we allow it to happen. Why? We want to keep up with fashion. We want to keep up with trends. We want to wear cool clothes. We want people to like us. It's hard. The world's hard. The world's a hard place. And a lot of times we don't know any better, right? We just do it. I mean, good Lord, Forever 21, that place is filled with cheap clothes. You ever look at that and go, where does all that stuff go? Think they sell all that stuff? No. And it goes to outlet stores, right? But then where does that stuff go when it doesn't get sold? It goes in the trash. Right? At some point, things get thrown away. Hopefully they get recycled. Does anyone know about recycling and clothes and stuff? Yeah, Manuel?
Sometimes what they do is that they got clothes that didn't sell from the last season, and they sell it to a different place. And like if it's Forever 21, they sell it like a place that is not Forever 21,
Right.
and they sell it more cheaper.
Right. And then that place tries to sell it, but if they can't sell it, then they probably find another place, and then eventually it gets kind of thrown away. And then I'm curious if they do recycle. I hope there's some sort of clothes recycling program. So, thinking about that information, thinking about the quick question, what is the effect if we continue to buy cheaply made clothing on a regular basis? There's one thing too, those hoodies, like that, and no one picks, and then we all like kind of don't look at. I'm glad they get sent to the foundation now. You know how many bathtubs full of water it takes to grow the cotton necessary for like a hoodie? 8. 8 full bathtubs of water. Like, that's a ton of water that we use for your clothes. And then when we see them kind of just not cared about, you're like, is this anybody's clothes? I don't know who that is. I don't care. Like, it's a big deal. Okay? We need to take care of ourselves, take care of the world, take care of our stuff. Yes, what's that? It's not. How do you get that out of not like whose sweater is this? Maybe have your name in it. Maybe show care and stuff about your stuff. Maybe take care of things so they last a long time. Like that's the idea, is you buy clothes and then you wear them for a longer period of time instead of buying a bunch of clothes. That was the point, Sanchez. Thank you for the question. Okay, that's an important clarification. We're not saying don't, what's that? We're not saying don't buy clothes, just take care of it. Right? Like my son this morning, he's like, well, I want a new mama truck. You know what a mama truck is? Those things, the trucks that transport other, he calls them a mama. I think it's in Spanish, a mama truck. Maybe, I don't know. It's like no, it's like the big trucks that carry cars and stuff. All right, awesome. So he calls them mama trucks. So he's like, I want a new mama truck. Why does he want a new mama truck? Because he broke his old one. He's like, well, I broke this, so now I get a new one. And we're like, no, Joaquin, that's not how life works. You need to take care of your stuff. Right? You need to take care of things so that it has it. We don't put a negative thing. So, answer in your notebook. If we continue to buy cheap clothing, then what might happen? What do you think? Write it in your notebook. Write it down. If we continue to buy cheap clothing, then... Another 15 seconds. Get your thought down. What happens if we continue to buy cheap clothing? All right, check in with your partner. What did they say? What did you say? More plastic. It's in the ocean. Probably what more materials are used to make it. Just more things, more impact on the world, more negative impact. All right, another 15 or 10 seconds. Finishing up your thought. And thanking your partner. Thank you, Antonio. And probably a larger, more negative impact on the earth. The more you buy, the more you consume. All right? We have created, right, expert consumers. People who consume video, consume music, consume food. When you watch videos, YouTube, you're consuming the information. That's what we call that. They call the iPad the perfect consumer mechanism. It's just perfect for consuming your time, right? And so you have all of these things that are working against you to consume you and your day and your thoughts and your time. And so it's just something to be aware of. Toto, yep? I mean, it could have a devastating impact on the world. Yeah. If the world dies, we die. All right, so if we never challenge how history has set up our world, if we never go, you know what, I think there might be a better way to do things, then what is the natural result of that? So answer one more time. If we don't challenge the way things are, then what? What happens? If you never, in your notebooks, right there, if you never take a moment to go, this shouldn't be the way it is, let's try and change it, what happens? Go ahead, check in with your partner. What do you think happens if you never challenge anything? Try it. You want to try it yourself? Makes sense to me. Thank you, Antonio. All right, 3, 2, 1, 0. Now, one of the things that, if you pay attention, I don't know if this has ever happened to you before, you have a thought. You have a thought, and then something shiny happens, or you get interrupted with something, and what happens to that thought? That thought goes. So a lot of times what we've done now to ourselves is we live in a world of constant dings and dongs and blings and plangs, and then there's a video game and there's that, and then, oh, my phone just rang, oh, my kid is interrupting me. All this stuff of like just zapping our attention. And so if you don't do a good job of, you have an idea, write it down, it's very easy for all of your good ideas that you have to disappear. I'm sure we've all been there. You're like, oh, that's a really good, what was that? And then you can't remember what you were doing. You're like, why am I in this room? That happens to me a lot. I'll walk into my room, and then something will happen. I'm like, why am I here? What's going on? And then I have to leave, and then I'm like, oh, that's right, I needed that. So, the ability to focus, the ability to ignore distractions helps us out a lot. Yep. Am I against technology? I love technology. I love my Kindle. I love my phone. I use it to record, capture. I have 7 years of 1-second videos that I make every year that celebrate my family and stuff. Love it. Do I like distraction? No. Do I think technology, if it's not used appropriately, can lead you to a life of unfulfillment? Yes, I do. I have a lot of worries about how we use technology, but I am not against technology. I am against how some companies use technology to manipulate us into doing what they want us to do. I don't like that. I don't like companies being able to manipulate children legally. That seems weird to me. I don't like that, but I'm for tech. I think tech is incredible. I think it could make the world a very good place, but right now I don't think it's used great. Is that fair? Cool. All right, so we are living in a historic time. We are living during a pandemic, COVID-19. If you've never heard of it, it's had some effects. Yes? Aware of the pandemic? Okay, good. So, it has to impact the future. So this moment in time will affect the future. So I just want you to take a risk. And I want you to think, what might be an effect of COVID-19 and the way we've handled it and the way we've gone about things to the future. So it seems to me COVID might impact the future by something. For example, something. So for me, maybe it seems to me COVID might impact the future by affecting child development. So what do I mean by that? For example, young children at school only saw like eyeballs. They didn't see the whole face. That's got to have had some sort of effect on them and their maybe maturity. So I'm wondering if maybe kids will be a little less mature or less developed than they used to be. Not your age, but I'm talking about like chiquiticos, like the young kids. Because we have to see the whole face. It's like we experimented that one time, like looking happy and looking angry, it's similar in the eyes, and that maybe freaks people out. So I'm curious about what that's going to do, and hopefully these masks go away soon. So you take a moment. What do you think might be an impact? You can steal mine if you want. Yeah. It's the last thing you got to write, Sanchez. That's it. Bless you. Bless you. Did the pandemic affect Russia to invade Ukraine? No. I don't know. No? Why not? How do you know no? Because no? No, I'm saying maybe did it cause Russia to invade Ukraine? Like did it do something to make Putin make a decision? I don't know. Yeah, the economy. Their economy is smaller than the state of Texas. So the United States, the state of Texas, makes more money per year than Russia does. That's pretty bonkers, isn't it? What's that? There's a lot of money in the United States. Lots of cash. When you are finished, you can go back to your desk. Remember, we're checking desks before you go to recess. We are going to take the fast 5 here in a moment. Huh? You're fine. Yeah.
I never knew that Texas made more money than Russia.
Isn't that nuts?
I wonder why.
I mean, I don't know. That's a good question. Additionally, or details. It was just right there? Okay, I'm going to ask everybody if somebody's going to take responsibility. Ooh, don't take away that. That's going to make you do worse on the fast one. I can hop on a video. Hold on a second. Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Somehow, Chris, you hear my voice not work? Hear my voice not twice. When I say class, you say yes. Class? Yes. Class? Yes. Pretty good. Chris found his pen broken, and he does not remember breaking it. Yes, David? Okay, does anyone want to take responsibility for breaking it? Publicly now? If you want to take responsibility privately, you may write it on your fast 5 that you accidentally broke it. Huh?
Yes. What?
But it wasn't on the floor when he found it. It was in his desk. So somebody broke it.
It was there in the.
Huh?
It was in the floor.
Oh, I thought you said it was on your desk.
No, this one. The only one was in my desk. And I didn't let her.
I'm just saying, if someone knows anything about you, I will do it. All right, question number 1. Oops.